I'll just...
So, let me just see if I can see people. Fantastic. Wonderful. Right, I'm going to get going. Just because I know that Sue has got well, hers is the most important part and mine is not. So I want to move on to her very quickly. What we're going to do is going to talk through what ICURe is for, a little tiny bit about Explore, Exploit and the follow-on funding journey, because although Explore is a 12-week program, it does really extend for about 15 months. So I'm going to talk a little tiny bit about that and then about whether you're ready for Explore. Then Sue's going to go on to the application form. I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens once you've applied, other options, assuming we get that far. And please do ask questions, most particularly to Sue as we go through, put them in the chat and then Leah can flag them to me. And then we'll talk about timelines and deadlines, but we'll probably have got that to start with. So just for introduction, my name is Rosie Jones. I'm the head of ICURe for the Set Squared Partnership. Some of you will be aware that we have 3 delivery partners in the North by Northwest and in Midlands. The next Explore programme, and the one for which the deadline is the 15th of November, is being run by ourselves. That's why this is me and Sue and Leah who are sort of putting this one on. Sue is our expert on IP and commercialization. She runs our exploit commercialization and collaboration and licensing program. She's been doing this for a very long time and is just really an expert. So I didn't think of anyone else when I really wanted someone to come talk about how the applications are evaluated and then what she as an evaluator is actually looking for. So I will hand over to Sue reasonably quickly. Leah is around and she's our events coordinator. She runs not only the events that we have online, but also our boot camps, and will be around at the next boot camp, which is going to be in Bangor in North Wales in January. Okay, so firstly, just a little bit of a overview of ICURe.
What happened?
We have a number of teams that have already been through. The program's been running for about 10 years. And in fact, in January, it will be the 10th anniversary of ICURe starting up. We've had a reasonable number of entrepreneurial leads and lots of companies that have come out and jobs that are created. And you can see the stats there. This is what I call our brag slide. And I think it shows the power of the program and the value of doing it in the first place. It's a pre-accelerator program. So it's designed to help you explore commercial application and the potential of UK research. It is not about spinning out. It is about market validation. And so it's about finding out where the market is for the research that our researchers are looking at, rather than you coming and saying, we know it's for this market and we're going to go and investigate and see if we can sell it. It's not about sales. It's about finding out different markets. And at the beginning of Explore, what we ask people to do is to identify 6 or 7 potential markets that their research might go into. Don't worry if you don't know what those are now. We will help you do that. But I'm just reiterating that it's a market validation program rather than a spin out and licensing program.
Rosie, there seems to be a funny black square covering up a little bit of your slide.
Is it on the far right hand side?
Yes.
Has it gone now?
No, you moved. Yes. Now it's gone. That's much better. I can read it all now.
It was me in the chat. It's just I am in a slightly strange. Anyway, don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm moving that away. Explore is one of the programs of 4 that are run through ICURe. You can find them all on the ICURe program website, which is icureprogram.com. Some of you I can see on the screen have been either through the Engage program or indeed are on Discover as we speak. Explore rolls into Exploit. You can't apply for Exploit, but you get invited to go into Exploit if your options roundabout recommendation is that way. And I'll talk a tiny little bit about options roundabout in a minute. People that can take part, anyone who is a member of a UK higher education institution or a research in the public sector research establishments. It's from all researchers, and the ICURe programs are from everyone from a PhD student all the way through to senior academics. In order to be able to be accepted onto Explore, you have to have submitted your PhD. Okay. The reason for that is, as I said before, this is a 15-month program. And in reality, if you haven't submitted your PhD by the time you start the program, we're not quite sure when you're going to finish it. And so fundamentally, you have to have submitted your PhD. And if you haven't submitted it by pretty much 2 weeks before the program starts, then you won't be able to start the program. It develops impact and very much helps people to understand what the impact of their research is going to be. Quite often, ICURe Explore, what comes out of it will be included by institutions as their impact case studies. One of the things that we've found is that it's also very useful for helping colleagues to get underneath the skin of their research, and particularly, for example, your university has impact acceleration accounts, part of that is to actually look and see what the commercial potential of the research is going to be. ICURe Discover particularly will help with that, but so will Explore. And last but by no means least, it develops skills in researchers, whether they are the entrepreneurial lead or the principal scientific advisor, which I'll come on to, but also in TTOs. We heard last week from a couple of TTOs who have found ICURe to be hugely beneficial for their career, both in learning but also in promotion, and also for other members and engagement across the institution between the tech transfer offices and the research base. As I said, it's about market validation, and there is a team, and it supports the whole of the team for Explore. And this is where Explore starts to become slightly different from Engage and Discover, that we do ask that there is a team that is dedicated to the program, not full-time, but that actually is aware that it's a team role as opposed to an entrepreneurial lead with a little bit of help that comes through. And it focuses on what the research could be for and not how it works. Just talking about the principal scientific advisor, the reason we've changed that from a PI or a senior academic is that Explore is now, and as is Discover, available for senior academics, and they can come on as entrepreneurial leads if they're the ones that choose to be the entrepreneurial lead that will then take whatever the impact is, potentially a spin out into the world. One of the things about the Explore and Exploit and the ICURe follow-on funding is that it has to be the same entrepreneurial lead all the way through, from Explore through Options Roundabout into the Exploit program and out of the follow-on funding. So this is not something which you can then spend 12 weeks and then either go back to research or choose to take over from an ECR. This is about the entrepreneurial lead who has the interest in going through. The entrepreneurial lead doesn't need to be a CEO of the company at the other end. Just to let you know that many are going to chief scientific officers, but they are expected to have, if there is a spin out, a leading role in that in that company. So it begins the process for the research to have real impact. But as I said, this may take 15 months or so to get to the other end of potentially starting up a business or making sure that there is a license that comes out of it. So the program itself starts off with the research idea, and the market discovery fits in the middle and ends up with what we call the options roundabout, in the sense that you could have any number of exits for the program. The options roundabout for our January start program is going to be on the 22nd and 23rd of April. I think it'll definitely be that week. It will be the Tuesday and the Wednesday of that week, one of those days. And that options roundabout involves a panel who is talking about, who will be expert in the fields, evaluating whether the market is actually ready for the research that you have, or your research is ready for the market. And as you can see, there are a number of different options that we would recommend to different teams, potentially spin out. And a lot of people that come on the program originally thinking that a spin out is the direction, or a license, and in some contexts that's what works, or collaborative research, or indeed going back to the lab and focusing in perhaps a different area for research going forward. So I just wanted to play these just so that you've got a little bit of an understanding about the what the entrepreneurial leads do and how they experience the program.
The ICURe program was a really good experience to me, and I had fun a lot actually, and also we learned a lot too in our fields. And I went 9 different countries in just 7 weeks. So it was an amazing experience to me. Also, we reached more than 115 companies, and we did more than 150 meaningful conversations in this 10 weeks. And also I need to say that I added almost 200 pharma-related people in my LinkedIn contact list in this 10 weeks. I learned how to manage the crisis, actually, I need to say that, because, in a short term, we had to join lots of events in this time period, and you had to handle the trains, the airplanes, the hotels bookings, everything in a short time. It was a little bit challenging to me, but now I'm quite relaxed about it. And also, I guess I'm more relaxed to talk to people after this journey, because I had lots of conversations in this period. The most important part of the ICURe journey was to change our customer segment part, I think, because we assume that the pharma companies, for example, would like to use our technology for their existing drugs to extend their IPs. We assume like these things. But after we talked more than 84 pharma companies, we just realized that they don't want to do these changes for their existing drugs in the market, but they are looking for another technologies for in-development drugs and vaccines, such as new generation technologies like mRNA vaccines or antibody-based drugs. So actually the most important part maybe was like this to us, because it affects our laboratory research part too. I can describe this program in 3 words. We can say it's fun and also intense and also extremely beneficial for your technology. When I mentioned about the ICURe program to my friends, they were really interested in that program immediately, because they saw that how much I'm happy about to be part of this program, and they want me to mentor them to apply this program also. It's a real thing. And I'm gonna help them to join this program also. So that's why I recommend everyone, of course, if someone has a product, which is commercializable product, definitely should apply this program.
For us, the ICURe program has been absolutely fantastic. The ability to go and talk to companies and share our research and then move on to commercialisation has really been very invaluable for us. So throughout the program, it's been really good to talk to both companies and individuals about our research, and I've definitely been able to grow my sort of commercialisation knowledge, certainly, and also my ability to present our research in an interesting and also digestible way. Key highlights for me have been the ability to travel and go and talk to people and companies from different countries, but also having the chance to then pitch that back to industry leaders and a selection of investors to be able to decide where we're going next with the program. If I had to describe the ICURe program in just 3 words, I would say intense, absolutely exhausting, but also, yeah, fantastic for my own personal development as well. So I would definitely recommend doing an ICURe program. It really is like cramming an MBA into 3 months, and it's been absolutely invaluable for my personal learning and the development of our team.
So you can see from the people who've taken part how beneficial they found it, both for themselves and for their research. Dugu ended up going back into the lab for further research. Ollie took a pause because we needed to sort some of his IP out, but he'll be joining the exploit program in January. And as you can see, this just really summarises the programmes as they go through. The Explore team is focused on the entrepreneurial lead who leads the project and is consistent all the way through the ICURe journey, through Explore, Exploit, and into Spinout. There will be a tech transfer officer, and we work very closely with the TTOs in order to keep the communication going between the central ICURe team as well as through the ELs. You're a key part of the team for us. And we would want to make sure that you're comfortable and you're happy with everything that's going on. So please do talk to us about any questions you've got now, through, afterwards, all the way through. It's really very much a partnership between ourselves in ICURe and the TTOs. As I said, there's also a principal scientific advisor, frequently the research group lead, but it doesn't have to be. If you yourself are the EL as a research group lead, you need someone who is going to be similarly understanding of your science so you can bounce ideas around. It's a really key part, because once the entrepreneurial lead goes out and talks to the market, they will be finding leads coming back. They need to be able to pass them on to someone else who can follow them up. So it's not a full-time part by any stretch of the imagination, but it is somewhere where we know that we need the support of another academic who can be there as a bit of a mentor, but also support some of the leads that are coming back out. And then a business advisor who shouldn't care about the science, but cares about the potential. Don't worry if you don't have someone who could do the business advice. We have a collection of business advisors who are up for being involved and who've penciled those dates out, and we can put you in touch with someone if you don't have access to someone. All must attend the boot camp, and I've got a timetable for when that boot camp is going to be. Just very quickly, you can see the ICURe Explore programme starts our next one in January. The options around about 23rd, 24th of April. Then we'll move on to Exploit, which will begin in May. And the Spinout will end up in July. There isn't a collaboration and licensing Exploit programme until the January afterwards, but you will be invited to that one if you go onto it. And then application to ICURe follow-on funding will only be those available to those recommended for Spinout at options roundabout, and that opportunity will close in April 25. So I can come back to this one, and I don't want to hang on to it, but it's just really a matter of what the team has to be involved in and how that goes on. So I'm going to hand over now to Sue, who's going to do the important bit about this, how you actually write a good application. So there we are.
It won't let me, oh, thank you. You wouldn't let me share while you were still sharing.
No.
Great. So we're going to go into a bit more detail about the actual application. And I can see a couple of names in the room who really ought to already know all of this. So I'm anticipating, because I've seen their names before on ICURe. So I'm not going to name you, just in case you can't remember anything about it. But I'm expecting some really good questions throughout this explanation, presentation, whatever you want to call it. But first, so we're going to delve into the detail here of the application form. And as Rosie said, I'm now an assessor. I've been involved in ICURe since the very, very, very beginning, back in cohort 1, and seen it develop. And it's just, I can't say how useful it's been for entrepreneurial leads. And when I was a TTO, it was extremely helpful to me in moving things forward. So I'm going to start, as it says on the screen. We're going to go focus a little bit on the application form. But first, and with a particular focus on a couple of the questions, finishing with some hints and tips, which I hope you're going to contribute towards. But first, I want to ask you a question. So how many people have been involved? There will be a poll come up in a minute, a Zoom poll, in any form of grant writing, not ICURe, not Explore, not, well, could be, or a basic research grant. How many of you, can you see the poll?
Yes, they can.
Because we're not getting many votes.
Here we are.
Oh, right, I'm not seeing it. Okay,
Yeah.
good. How are we doing, Leah? Have we got enough? Or are people still trying to work out?
27.
Sorry?
25 out of 27, 26 out of 27.
Yeah,
Well, given that That's fine. That sounds good. So can you close the poll and let us all see the answer? So the vast majority of you, as I expected, have been involved in grant writing of some form or another. I didn't ask you whether that was this sort of translational grant, ICURe grant, or an academic grant, but that experience will be really, really valuable. So if you could close that poll, thank you. So we're now going to go into Mentimeter. I expect most of you have used Menti before, but if you could go in either on your phone, I usually use my phone, or on a browser and type www.menti.com, as in the top of this slide. You will be, I'm asking you here, a question. What 3 things do you think are important for any grant application? You should have 3 boxes come up if you use the code at the top of this slide, which is 27716333. Am I getting some puzzled looks, or are got quite a lot of black boxes, but those people I can see? Can you get into Menti OK?
So, sorry, can you say again, what's the website? Is it the Mentimeter or menti.com?
Menti.com.
Menti.
Yeah, you
Just
can put info in the chat box. Yeah. So the code and the website is in the chat.
Yes, as well as on the top of the slide. Are people actually managing to get to it?
I did.
I've
good.
got in, but then it says your hints and tips, enter a word, enter another word, enter another word.
It should, that's for later on. It's not showing you 3 important things for any grant application.
No, it was the hints and tips.
No.
Oh.
Very. So in that case, since we're not too big a group, can I suggest, what do you think? Shout out, put your hand up, just talk. What would you think are 3 important things for any grant application?
Tom?
Any ideas? Sorry, Tom.
Hello, can you everybody hear me?
Yep.
So I put scientific rigor. So it needs to be robust from a scientific perspective.
Yep, that's a good one. Any more to add? Tom or anyone else?
Reese has put one in the chat. Ensure the funder feels confident that your project will help them hit their KPIs.
Nice, I like that one. So Rosie's given you some of our KPIs. Hope you're all writing them down. Any more ideas?
Louise has said the problem to be solved.
Oh, we've got lots coming up in the chat. That's brilliant.
Yeah, Raj has said clarity on research theme. Eligibility, thank you for that.
And team, thank you for that as well.
We always have people who aren't eligible. Clarity, thank you.
Lovely.
Fantastic. Yes, thanks, Elena.
So, right team and project partners. Yep. Clear objectives. Nice. So thank you all very much for that. I'm sorry the Menti didn't work this morning as usual. Decided to take umbrage, but never mind. So, whoops. So if we just move on, if it will let me, come on, next slide. There we go. So you've just captured, and I hope, Leah, can we keep a copy of the chat rather than of a word cloud? So you've all just put in some really excellent generic points that, as far as I could see, apply completely to this application as well. So you know what you're doing. The questions might be different. Some of the ways I'm going to suggest you answer them might be different to a research grant, but you know what you're doing already. So this particular application is online. It's in 2 parts. There are 14 questions which are assessed, and then there's a big group of information we need to collect. Please complete it, because we do need to collect it. But it's not assessed, it's just background information. Is that fair, Rosie? It is important. Please don't.
Absolutely, it's important. We have to report on it back to ICURe, but it's not something that's assessed.
Exactly. So, but even of those 14, we do assess all those 14, but there are 4 that I'm going to pick out and talk about today, because we haven't got that long, which always seem to elicit a really wide range of responses, some of which make me go, what were they thinking when they put that in? So please don't be one of the people who does that, because it's really hard on the assessors if you do. But they're also absolutely fundamental to success, both in being accepted onto Explore, but perhaps even more important on where you go afterwards with your research commercialization. The first of those is IP status. An awful lot of you are going to go, oh, really boring. However, Rosie's just talked about a project which got delayed because the IP wasn't clear. And if you want investment, partnership, whatever, your investor or your partner needs to know that what you own and what you don't. It doesn't have to be all encompassing, but you need to be clear on it. And there needs to be enough in there for them to want to do a deal with you. So this is critical, even though I agree it's sometimes a bit boring. I'm going to do on all of these questions, I'm taking excerpts. So most of them are not the whole answer. There are word limits, but they're not the whole answer. They're just the bits I liked or didn't like within that. But also, first tip, which I think this answer is done very well. Read the question. Under the thing that says IP status, there's a sentence that says what we're really asking, a little bit more detail. Do read it, because it makes it much easier for you to answer in the way that's going to get a positive response from us. So, as you know, I hope, ICURe and Explore in particular relates to IP owned by UK universities only, or PSREs, not IP owned by individuals. So make sure any intellectual property you talk about is owned by your institution. But most important, be clear about what your IP is. So this one I really liked. I've tried to anonymize where I can some of these answers. If you know who they are, please don't divulge it. But we all like patents. This is a really clear sentence saying where they're at in the patenting process. They happen to have gone to the US, not the UK. That was, in this case, that was very logical for the project. And then very briefly, they say what the patent covers. So we get an idea. They know they've patented, they've put in a patent application, where it's at in the process, and roughly what's covered by it. This is not a technical question. This is a tell us about your IP. But what I really liked about the second one is we all like patents. They're clear, they give good protection, but they're not the only IP that's relevant. So this particular application talked about other IP, in particular, know-how and database rights. Now, in my view, it was a bit long and complicated, the answer. I had to read it twice to work out that all they're really talking about was know-how and database rights. So what I would suggest, I love bullet points personally, and I know that that is something that generally isn't used a lot in research grant applications, but it allows me to look really quickly at the nub of what you're talking about. So I would have liked it put like this: know-how associated with software development and architecture. That was clear. And then database rights. And you know, I've read that paragraph about 100 times and I couldn't complete this sentence. Maybe they could have, I hope they could have done, but I couldn't. So just make it simple for people like me to follow what it is you've got in the IP space. So, and I like patents. Patents are really nice. They're really clear. I can see where they're in the process, but don't forget the other sorts of IP. There's a lot more in databases and know-how, which your TTOs will be able to help you with. Please don't do this. This is all about me. Me. IP is jointly owned by myself, my PhD supervisor, and a medical professional consultant. How many red flags does that raise? Well, there's only about 3 things in there, so it must raise 4 red flags. Number 1, clearly this person who wrote this has mixed up IP ownership with inventor, who's an inventor on it. But that means you don't understand IP. It probably means your tech transfer officer hasn't been involved in the application, which is a bit scary too. And it means the IP, if it was true, which I doubt, it means the IP is not owned by the institution, so you're not eligible. So apart from those 1 or 2, how many words raised how many red flags? Please make sure you read what the requirements are and you answer the question. Now, that's all I'm going to say about this. Was a particularly bad one, I have to say. They're not, even those I don't like, are not usually this bad. But any questions about IP before I move on to my next area that I'm going to drill deeply into? Does everybody? Oh, Rosie's got one.
So let me just say, if you don't have clarity about this, if we have some questions, we will come back to you, assuming that the rest of the application is okay. Okay, so I do quite a lot of follow-ups afterwards, but I would say, and Sue mentioned it, that if you haven't involved your TTO, it will be obvious to us, and we would really like you to involve your TTO before you put the application, or at least before you finalize the application.
And just to support what you said, Rosie, that will be true for any of these questions. But the more you get clear up front, the less likely we are to go, well, hang on a minute, there's all these other teams that knew what they were talking about. We'll stick them in. Is that Isla?
Yes. Hi. I had a question on behalf of universities that maybe don't have an established TTO. Hopefully they might have an IP expert. But would you, if they've been unable to get clarity on this or help with this from the university, would you, how would you feel if they wrote what they could and then explicitly said they would like to get some advice and help from the delivery partner? Would that be okay?
I think I'd let Rosie ask that one.
Yeah, I would encourage them to do that. But also, if you don't have a TTO and you have complexity in your IP, please ring me as soon as you can, or email me as soon as you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Eva?
Oh, okay. Hi. So I have a question. What happens when the IP is jointly developed between higher education institution and industrial partner, but naturally, the research was co-funded by such partner? Do you require any additional sort of agreement between the university and the industrial partner to be put in place?
So normally,
yeah, go on, Sue.
Sorry, normally there would have been an agreement in place when the collaboration was put in place, which will say something about IP. If it says the commercial partner owns all IP and can do whatever they like with it, then unless you've got something from the commercial partner saying, actually, we don't want to get on with it, it's not really owned by the university. It might say it's all owned by the university and the commercial partner gets a limited license in this space. That's fine. But the most important is that you know what's in there. And occasionally, this never happens in universities, but just by chance, one slipped through the net and there wasn't a collaboration agreement in place, then you need a letter from that partner clearly stating that they're happy for you to go ahead and exploit the IP that came out of it.
And again, I would say, if you're in that circumstance, and we've got a couple on the current programme, please contact us. This is the sort of thing, if there's complexity in the IP, where I will be talking to you once the application's gone through, if you've come to the top of the pile, okay? It won't stop you coming to the top of the pile, but it is something that we might well have to follow up very closely afterwards.
But I would say, if you're not at the top of the pile on other things, then it'll push you even further down. So
Talk to us first.
talk to Rosie first, not me. So let's move on to the second question where people often seem to trip up. And that is the stage of research or technology development. And we use technology readiness levels where we can here. Now, you will, if you have read the background to explore, you'll know that you need to be at roughly TRL4. Technology readiness levels work brilliantly in, they were invented by NASA a very long time ago and work really, really well in engineering. And this is the EU set of definitions. There are multiple ones out there, including for social science, which I really like. And I haven't shown those, but there are some technology, they call them something else, technology readiness levels for social science projects, which are really, really good. And it's sort of divided into 3 chunks: research, development, and then deployment. Universities usually operate at TRLs 1 to 4-ish. All of these things are ishy, okay? They're not solid lines. And then development, getting it really ready to go to the marketplace, is usually 4 or 5 through to 7-ish. And then when you're actually out there and really in the market and getting it ready to launch is sort of 7 to 9-ish again. So what I did want to say was a little bit about medical stuff, because that's my background. We're much more used to clinical trial stages and things like that. And people do have difficulty working out roughly where TRL4 is. My definition, there are multiple different definitions online. So this is my definition, okay? I think TRL4 is where you've done some in vitro work, maybe started to do some talks, and you've probably done some first in vivo or ex vivo, depending which path you're going down, results. Because it's pretty unanimous-ish that TRL5 is in vivo preclinical, including ADME and tox. So it's a step before that. Now, we're not going to be, you've only done X mice in vivo, it doesn't count, or anything like that. But that's the sort of stage you need to be at in order to enter explore, not ICURe totally. So somewhere between technology validated in the lab and validated in a relevant environment. And that will depend on the sector you're in, exactly what that looks like. There we go. I think I've said all those things that I wanted to say about that. But if you're in social sciences, do take a look at the online definitions. So various people have put a lot of work into defining them for different sectors. So some good ones first, that I like anyway. We've demonstrated this technology within several different prototypes in the laboratory environment. The results show that. I always like a little bit of evidence, not pages and pages like you would put in a research paper or application, but just enough to make me go, oh yeah, it actually really has been demonstrated in a lab environment. Tom.
I just wanted to ask a little bit more about that. So if you've got an application that came along that hasn't got any scientific publication associated with it, is that going to be a problem? Or because obviously from an IP perspective, if you're putting something in, you can't put it into publication.
We could argue about the stage at which you can put it into publication, but you certainly need to file your patent first. No, that's fine, because you may have decided, you may in fact have decided on your IP to keep it trade secret, and then you won't have any publications ever on it. I'm not sure that's a really robust IP strategy, but you might have decided, amongst other things, to include trade secrets. And then, of course, you won't have it published. Rosie, I believe these applications are confidential, but I would say be a bit careful.
We would say they are all confidential. Everyone has signed that we work with has signed an NDA. However, anyone will say don't put confidential stuff in applications, We don't want to know the detail of it that makes it special. We want to know that you know the detail of it that makes it special. Yeah.
That's
So
perfect. And I like the second one. The technology is currently moving from a lab demonstrator scale, TRL4, to an application-based field test, TRL level 5. And then a little bit more about maybe the field test, just so that I really know you're right, really believe you, if you see what I mean. Now, Rosie's nodding madly. A couple that I'm a little less impressed by, blah, 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 has undergone over 7 years of development in our research labs for the blah, blah, blah market. Oh, good. And what have you actually done? What's it shown? I don't really care. If you've shown everything to TRL 7 in 1 year, that's great. And if you've got nowhere in 7 years, that's not great. So I went, oh yeah, okay, fine. Were you just trying to fluff it out because you hadn't got enough words to say? And the invention is a methodology which we've demonstrated to be effective. That's another one. Oh, good. What? How? What? How? What? What have you shown? Why do you think it's effective? So if it's I can't remember what this one was, but say it was a medical device on CBT. We have tested it with X patients and the benefits have been, or we've shown that it was effective in 90% of the cases, or whatever. Just something that actually tells me something, doesn't just use up words. So, any questions on stage of research or technology development? Everybody understands TRLs clearly. Excellent. And please take my definitions for medical with a bit of a pinch of salt, but that's the sort of level we're looking for in a drug development. So next we're going to look at research funding or support to date. Right, any ideas on why we ask this question? I think I've answered it in answer to one of the other questions, but never mind. Why do you think we need to know this? Why do we care? Tom, thank you.
It gives a little bit of an indication as to what support's been given with respect to which organisations. So it may actually help with the decision making with respect to whether or not it can actually have legs in terms of further developments. But it also sort of prevents you from, say, double dipping, if you like. So say you've put in a bid somewhere else and you've got that, and then you decided to come along and try and get something else, because I think you get where I'm coming from with that one.
I do. It paints the picture. And that's absolutely right. Brigitte? Are you Brigitte or yeah?
Yeah, that's fine. Every research fund or grant basically has their criteria. So to get something, and they indicate that it's relevant for the market. And so it more or less got already validated once that there is potential and that's at least some areas of interest in a wider sense, basically.
Absolutely. That's a really, really helpful indicator again. It's not a yes, no for us, but it's an indicator. There's one other reason that is actually really quite important that I did allude to when we were talking about IP, I think. Anybody got any ideas? Go on, Tom.
I thought I did, and then it's popped out of my head again. I think it's more about the status of your intellectual property, who already is aware of what you're doing, and whether or not there is any concerns with regards to the loss of intellectual property or the breaching or availability of those intellectual property rights.
Yep, that's a good one. Faustina, go on, tell me what you were going to say.
Thank you. Something similar. I mean, in the case where the funder, there might be some terms and conditions about ownership of the IP is what I was thinking.
Exactly. Brilliantly summarized. So thank you all for your comments. We talked about if it's been funded by industry, for example, does industry have rights in the IP? So it's you've summarized in a much broader way. Is there anything in here where the terms and conditions are going to get in the way? It's another thing where sometimes people have to do a bit of unpicking, and that may be a TTO, or if you haven't got a TTO, it's often a business development person who just needs to make sure that that deal with that company allows you to exploit in another way going forward. So this I quite like. Blah, blah, blah has been developed with funding from, guess what, this is in my sector, MRC CIC, giving you a bit of, giving us a bit of idea of when and how much, and then various other things, including funding from the University College of Medical and Dental Sciences. So that's quite clear where some of the funding has come from. This is one I made up, but it's based, I couldn't find it again, but it's based on one I did receive. So blah, blah, blah has been developed with funding from EPSRC, MRCCIC, and University of X-Hyph, whatever. And just to give us a bit more of an idea, again, how much money, what the dates are, and the title. Now I can read that in, well, Rosie can probably read it in half a second. It takes me about 3. Rosie reads stuff at phenomenal rates, as do most academics, but I'm really slow. So I can read that in 3 or 4 seconds and see if it looks great, or if there are any places where I'm going, what? I need to follow up on that. So it's quick and easy for me as an assessor to read. And it gives all the same information. It's great. So this third one said the work was mainly supported by the EPSRC, grant number, blah, blah, program entitled. It's also supported by the Royal Society. And so that bit I thought was, I was quite encouraged by that. But the sentence then completed. This work also attracted industrial collaborations, including blah, blah, and blah. They did name the companies, which made me go, oh, hang on. So is this okay? This particular one had been quite clear under the IP section about why they thought they owned enough IP to go forwards. But that, obviously, they were trying to say, we've got great industrial links, we've got great industrial pull. But I was left going, huh? So if you're going to put something like that in, it's great because it does identify that you've already got industrial pull, you've already got industrial links. Put a bit more on the end about, I don't know, but under our contracts, we own all the IP, or this was in other spaces in the project, or something, just to reassure me that you understand that you can go forward. Tom.
Is it an issue if there's multi-ownership of intellectual property concerning an idea, or is it a case that there can be a 50-50, 60-40, or whatever split is necessary with the prior agreement, say, if you've got an industrial partner involved in a project already?
So if you have an agreement with that industrial partner or anybody else that you can exploit, and any exploitation proceeds will be split, that's fine. Quite often between universities will just assign to one university to take it forward. So originally it would be joint, and then the assignments happened and it's clear who's taking it forward. It's clarity on who is going forward with it, under what, and what permissions they've got from everybody else to show that they can. Mike? Mike, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks. So I just wanted to your last statement really on the guy that confused the industrial pole or connections would really the support. Is it possible for you to really contextualize the word support in the application? It's very clear when you start talking about support in terms of funding, but where do you draw the line where money is not involved when it comes to support, when it comes to ICURe Explore? When do you actually say it's getting blurred, you can't say this, or this is real support that you can put down on there?
So it's really back to what I said before, if you've got clarity, if they've supported you financially or non-financially, but any intellectual property is owned by you or you have permission to exploit, then you're fine. So yes, contextualize. That's exactly what I was trying to say. So it's really nice to see industrial engagement, but at the same time, we need to be sure that you can move forward with the project. So it's a question, contextualize is a great word. I shall put that on the next time I do this. Rosie?
Yeah, I was going to say almost always there is some question about the intellectual property on the applications that we see. So if you've got a partnership with a commercial organization, just say that you've got an intellectual property position with them, or that you're investigating it. If you've got a joint piece of IP with a different institution, that happens probably 1 in 2 times, just state it. Okay. What we have been doing is saying to the lead institution, which will be the TTO where the intellectual property mostly is, you need to have it agreed and sorted by X date, which will be usually 3 or 4 weeks before the options roundabout at the absolute latest. We have some interesting ones at the moment where the intellectual property is shared by the World Health Organization and the US Army. It's not something that will stop you coming onto the program. It just it flags that we know that we need to do something with it.
Yes, I don't want to scare you off coming in. Rosie's absolutely right. But I think I've written contextualize down in great capital letters, because the way universities work, it's actually really rare that it's really simple. When I was a TTO, I used to tell people that I dreamt of getting some IP that was only invented by the academic, or it could be more than one, from our university. And whatever they did, they'd never touch the NHS or NIH or whatever. But it doesn't happen like that. That's not how innovation happens. Innovation happens by different types of brains bouncing off each other. And that could be the army, could be the NHS, could be different universities, or somebody moves universities. It happens all the time. And yeah, so I don't want to put you off it, but just contextualize. I'm going to use that word all the time now. It's brilliant. So some other things that I found unhelpful. Work on this thing has been going on at the university of wherever we are for over 20 years. This is another one of oh, good. And who paid for it? It's unlikely to have been internal university funds for 20 years. It's probably a research council, which is great, or 10, which is great, but that tells me nothing. And that raises, well, I think we've had enough of these flaggings, but again, that's probably good, but that suggests to me that the company owns the IP. So if they don't, if you've got a deal with the company to say that the university can commercialize and move forward, say so. Is that okay? Any more questions? It is quite important. And it's one of those that people tend to skip over, which is why we get such interesting answers, shall we say, or those that tell us nothing. So this is one that I in particular spend a lot of time focusing on. Why do you want to come on Explore? Rosie said this particular program is all about understanding the market validation, taking your research or somebody's research towards an impact. So whoever it was who said right up front that we bear in mind your grants KPIs, I've forgotten exactly what you said, but remember that when you're filling this one in, please. This is quite long, but I quite liked this particular one. I will let you read it rather than me reading it out, because you're quite capable of reading on your own. So those of you who've been on Discover will be recognizing some of the words, I hope. which you might call jargon. The jargon is not necessary. But the bits that I pulled out were these things. So they've already taken a look at the market. They thought they knew where they were going, pharmaceutical-like. But somehow they've picked up some indications, some clues that there might be value elsewhere. And they really want to explore the full breadth of the market to check that they're going into the right place first, that they're maximizing the benefit, commercial or not, doesn't always have to be commercial, of this particular piece of research. So that's why I liked it. Again, I'd have written it in bullet points. So we've done some market research. We're quite confident there's something in pharmaceuticals, but we've kind of heard that there might be application elsewhere. So we want to come on and find out about the market. Again, it's really quick and easy for me to read that. Please don't do this. A lot of people do. I'm running out of money. I definitely want to do a spin out, but I need some more money to pay my salary. I think I want to do a spin out. Well, I might want to do a spin out. But anyway, we know that spin outs are what ICURe does. So I'll put that in just to give me some money. Well, it's actually very easy to assess. You get a very low grading on this one. But also, I have seen applications where I'm thinking, they know that what we're looking at is market validation, but you know what they really want is money. So do be careful how you write. We've seen a lot of applications. Do be careful how you write, how you fulfill the KPIs of this particular set of applications. So any questions about why are you applying? I would add one thing. You will hear whether or not you've got on to Explore quite close to the start of the programme. So thinking about Entrepreneurial Leads Fund finance being paid, it's imperative actually to make it work within your university to have thought about how you will stop being paid by any other source for at least 3 months, potentially 15, as Rosie said, and therefore be able to do 100% on the ICURe programme, which, as everybody has told you, is really intense. You need to do 100%. So you need to think about how you're going to free up your time. And if you're lecturing or teaching, I'll come to you in a sec, Tom, that is not always straightforward. And it really, you need to have had that conversation well before the start date. Tom. You're not on Zoom mute, but I can't hear you.
How is that? Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Okie dokie. So, yeah, my understanding, and forgive me if I'm incorrect with this, would have been like that it would have been a salary buyout over the period of time.
That's right.
So the university would effectively still be paying my salary, but there would be a salary buyout for the period of time that I would be involved in the program. I don't know whether I've misunderstood.
No, that's correct. Sorry if I said something that misled that. But if you are teaching, for example, somebody else needs to do your teaching.
Yes.
That was the point I was trying to make, obviously very badly. Or even if you're doing research, you can't be saying, oh, I'll do a day a week in the lab.
Oh, well.
If you do that.
Yeah, no, of course.
I don't know if we get that.
Yeah, some people have tried to do this, and there really isn't time or space. There really isn't.
I got the impression from previous conversations with some of the team that there's quite a lot involved. So
exactly.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, Rosie. But it's well worth working out how you're going to be bought out. Is that a better way of putting it?
Yeah. So just from, well, I've already started having discussions with my line manager about it, even though I haven't even started writing the application yet.
Ideal. Absolutely ideal. Reese?
yeah, it's perhaps not the best session for feedback items, but as we're on the topic, that's one of the points that you made about finding out very close to it that is holding us back from getting better traction with the academic community here. So I'm the TTO manager for Bangor University. And yeah, teaching plans are already firm and fixed for January, and there's not a lot of bandwidth within the schools to make sort of short changes. So if you're thinking, the call that's open right now, the one that will start in January, the next Explore cohort, it's a real tough sell to the academics who've already sort of made their plans for 2 months' time. So the financial side of things is not too hard. It's the availability on staff and knowing whether or not. So one way that we dealt with this we have our own internal innovation funds for doing this sort of thing internally, which are nowhere near as good as ICURe. Don't worry, but we have to promise next year's money. So we do applications, review, feedback now. Then people get 4 months to hire any positions, sort out their teaching, that sort of thing before the next window of work actually starts. And that was the only way we were able to make that program successful, because again, we had exactly that same problem.
Rosie, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think traditionally ICURe has focused on early career researchers doing the entrepreneurial lead role. And so that has then meant that they are less likely to be teaching. And I think now changing it slightly so that more senior academics can apply. They don't have to, and actually they still do work well as mentors and that principal scientific advisor. Has meant that people do need to think whether they're going to apply for ICURe and whether that's going to happen. We do have 6 programs a year, so it would be feasible to actually go through. But I take your point. I mean, I've been teaching myself, and it's set, and it's set at the beginning. So
I appreciate that. So thank you. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, because with our internal innovation pot that we're promising for next year's money, the problem is that the landscape in the market changes, doesn't it, whilst you're sat waiting for the work to start. Yes, so exactly. So applications this year are perhaps not relevant for next year's market. So it is a double-edged sword. It's a hard one to solve.
Yeah. If anyone's worried about applicant time being really short, just to let you know, you will know by, I think we should have by the 6th of December at the absolute latest. I mean, I know that only gives you sort of a month, but it will be we're not going to tell you on the 1st of January that it's all starting on the 17th of Jan, just to let you know.
Which I know is shocking, but that's longer notice than there has been in the past. So one thing this might be slightly contentious, but one thing for those people who are thinking about going down the spin-out route is a change in culture on time. And it's often, in my experience, been one of the biggest clashes between spin-outs and universities, is that a spin-out needs a decision, preferably today, but after next week is too late. And a university is going, well, no, hang on, we need 6 months to go through every committee you can come up with. Slight exaggeration, but not much. So one of the things that during the ICURe total program, including Exploit, we do try and change some of the mentality. And I know that's hard if you're teaching, which is why I mentioned teaching specifically. But it's something to be aware of, that academics or entrepreneurial leads, if they go into a spin out, will need to behave differently. And that's part of what's covered in Exploit. Anyway, right, where are we doing on time? I shall just... Now, I'm hoping this time you will be able to... Now, is that... No. Sorry, my Menti has gone completely bonkers, because this looks to me like the first answer, not the one I was after now. So I'm going to... It's a really good job we haven't got a group of 40 on here, because I'm going to ask you again to use chat. And I'm going to stop share so we're not all staring at that. Use chat and give me some ideas on, given what we've talked about so far, what are the key hints and tips that you would now suggest for anyone applying to ICURe Explore? Oops, lost the chat. That wasn't a good start. Clear plan, engage with key internal and external stakeholders. Thank you, Tom. Give clear answers, not vague. Yep. Clear about IP ownership. Don't hide any issues about IP. Be honest. Thank you. Yes. Clear and concise. Any more? Clarity concerning long-term planning. So you don't have to be detailed about your long-term plan, but why you're applying helps if you can think longer term. Clear, don't waffle. Yes, please. Ask if you have doubts. Yes, please. Focus the application, make it clear, direct to the point and not too lengthy. I love it when I can read things quickly because I will have to assess 30 odd of these. And if I'm in a good mood at the beginning of yours, you're much more likely to err on the positive side. Bullet points, simple, clear pathway internally. Yes, absolutely. Contextualize. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. It's written down in capital letters here. Don't make it personal. Yes and no. It is about an application, but it's the entrepreneurial lead who will take the project forward. And for them, it needs to be personal. They need to be really passionate about taking this whatever through to the market. So yes, the science needs to be objective, needs to be factual. But I like to see a bit of passion coming through on why these people are actually trying to do it. Thank you. Be aware of the expectations of each of the team members. Thank you, Cliff. So yeah, yes, absolutely. Know what you're letting yourself in for, all of you. There's one more that I'm still waiting for. Go up a level. Rosie knows what I'm waiting for. I can see it in her eyes. I'll give it in a minute. Somebody think of...
Yeah, questions.
Numbers. Forward planning of exploit, market. Hey, thank you. Market validation and not all about the money. This is about market validation. Contextualize all your answers in that framework. Coming back to the question. I'm happy with numbers and or a descriptive answer, as long as you answer the question. So I do like, if you're talking about your TRL, say I've got 60% of my whoever's said whatever or showed whatever. I like a few numbers in that, but a lot of them need to be descriptive. Ava.
So, I mean, we're talking about, market validation. Naturally, the applicants who are writing these applications, well, they will be learning about the markets during the journey. But there is a question that relates to that. And very often they don't have any idea how big is the market. So what sort of information you're looking for? I mean, naturally, I believe they should first do sort of standard desk-based research, Google search. So will you be happy with this sort of answers?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not expecting anybody to know at the beginning of Explore what they should know at the end.
Yeah.
So absolutely, any information they've got, I would expect a little bit of desk-based research, understanding what the benefits of the research might be. So, Rosie, what was it you said on your slide? The business advisors doesn't care about the science, it's what it's for.
It's what the implication is. Yes. So don't care about the research, care about its usage is what you're actually looking. Yeah.
So that's what we want. And we want a little bit of or at least thought about how it could be used. And is this likely to be a big market or a small market? Who's likely to pay for it? But 99%, no, that might be exaggerating. 90% of the people who come on Explore will change that during the program.
Yeah.
And that's what we expect. So it's
And-
really introductory, really high level,
Yeah.
but coherent.
My take on that one is I don't want you to have tried to do Explore before you start doing Explore. Yeah.
Right.
If you've got an idea about potential markets, that's great. Please tell us. What I don't want to see is we're going to spin out the company in 4 months' time and I need the follow-on funding. So I'm coming on Explore because I know it's the only way to do it. Okay. If we get a feel for that, then you will expect to be grilled in that kind of context because it's a waste of everyone's time.
So I've got one more thing that I'm going to say before I move on to my hints and tips, which is, come on, go to the next slide. In your title, your nice catchy title, which is question 1, if you've got a name for your spin out, great, put it in because it's probably really imaginative. But please give me a hint whether your project is in nuclear fusion or medical drug discovery, because it helps me contextualize. I'm going to use that word every 10 seconds now. The rest of the application, and you would be amazed at how many people don't do that. So
we can't see your slides, Sue, because you.
No, I know. I just clicked on the wrong thing. So, I wanted to finish with just a few hints and tips from me. I've summarized them. I think you've got all of those in the chat. So my first one is remember the objectives of ICURe Explore. Market validation is a step to getting the research out there and used. Contextualize your answers. Demonstrate the entrepreneurial lead really wants to do this and is not just filling a funding gap. And put yourself in the shoes of the assessors. This is why I like bullet points. You need to make it easy to understand. Short but informative answers. If the answers are too short, they haven't got enough detail in there. But if they're really long and wordy, just gets a bit boring. Single sentences probably aren't enough, but we're not looking for really complex erudite prose. I like bullet points. Don't include lots of scientific or any other form of jargon. Even if it's ICURe jargon, it's probably better not to. Assume assessors are well educated, but probably not up to date in your scientific discipline. So those are my 3 key takeaways. So thank you, Rosie. I'll let you finish off. Stolen your first slide, sorry.
I've just got a few other tips that I wanted to say. The application closes at on the 15th of November, and I think it's probably midnight. During the application process, as soon as you finalize your application, 2 things. If you have any questions about your finalized, if you want to change it, you won't be able to do it yourself. So come back to us, let us know. We can open it up again for you if you want to change something on your finalized application. Immediately you have finalized the application, we will ask you to book interviews for both the entrepreneurial lead and for the principal scientific advisor. And they will book immediately after the closing date. I don't know how long they are, but I think they're about half an hour each, depending on what they are. Your interview will be done by the same person. So whoever is interviewing the entrepreneurial lead will interview the PSA. Our assessment evaluation meeting is on the 27th of November in the afternoon. It is likely that there will be a number of questions. We had 10 going through into the last cohort. I had to ring 9 people and ask questions about a huge range of different bits and pieces. Some of it is, if you've got future leaders funding as your PSA, then we need to just clarify where that sits. There's things about intellectual property. As I said, I'm still talking about the US Army and the WHO. All of those things may need clarification. And so even if we call you and say there's some clarification we need, it doesn't necessarily mean you have a place. And if we don't call you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a place. So our assessment evaluations on the 27th of November, we will confirm to the 12 teams that we can take, and we are limited by Innovate UK on only 12 teams, by the 8th of December at the very latest. It may well be before that, because we're running on options around about the week after for the current cohort, and therefore won't have time. So it will be done by the 8th of December at the latest. If you are unfortunate enough to come in as number 13 or number 14, and no one drops out of our 12 in the first cohort, we will recommend you to the next cohort, which I think is North by Northwest, as they go through. Some further tips from me. If your application looks like you're in it just to be able to apply for 300,000 scale-up funding or Innovate UK follow-on funding, you're better off applying for a scale-up grant or a programme grant from BBSRC. If you know that you're going to spin out and you know that the market's going to go in, and your particularly your PSA is absolutely adamant that that is what's going to happen, and if your TTO concurs, you really are better off just missing out the 12 weeks and going straight for it. If you've written your application in that manner, it will come up as red flags. Your principal scientific advisor, your tech transfer officer, and your business advisor do need to come to day 2 and day 3 of the in-person bootcamp, which will be on the 18th and 19th of January in Bangor. And please make sure that they can support for that. If they do not come, we will not allow you to progress onto the rest of the programme. If they are off sick, they need to send someone else. Please be honest about your technology readiness level. If you're not really within about 18 months of usability, then the chances are you should probably be looking at Discover rather than Explore. And it is likely that you'll end up going back to further research and recommended for further research at Options Roundabout, which means that you won't have the opportunity to move on to Exploit ever and on to follow-on funding. You cannot apply with the same research to an ICURe programme and expect to be able to do it again. Innovate UK bring those rules in, and we can't take you for a second time. So if your research is not ready, or after we've spoken to you, maybe between the sort of 27th of November and the 8th of December, and you think you're wavering, then you are able to pull out. Don't worry about that, and we will offer your place to someone else. So if your TRL isn't really at that level 4, then we can talk through, and you may well be better going on to a Discover programme instead. If you've got any questions, do give me a call or email icure@setsquared.co.uk, where the lovely Leah and her colleagues will either answer your questions if they know the answer, or pass them on to me. Some other options, just in case you've got other people who may be interested, or you think that your technology is not of that TRL, or you're not ready for the programme. The first is we run an ICURe Engage programme, and it's been designed for 2nd and 3rd year PhD students.
Rosie, there's quite an important question that come up in chat.
Oh, I missed the chat because that's the thing.
So what if, you know, it's difficult. What if the PDRA or EL?
Yeah, that's fine. Oh no, the EL. If your EL is not able to be released for 12 weeks, you can't. It's a full-time post. So if the EL is employed part-time, they need to be able to come on the programme full-time. So again, we could talk that any particular instances through, but it would be okay if it was the PSA, but it's a little bit of a problem for the EL. It has to be full-time. You can't do this programme part-time. And that's not me saying it, that will be the EL saying that. So that's the answer to that one. But do send me an email and we can talk it through. Context, as we have seen, is everything. Okay, I'll just go back because we've only got 4 minutes. There are other programs. I'm just going to tell you about these. They're on the website. And there are 3 delivery partners. So ours is not the only Explore, but it's also not the only Discover and Engage program. If you think your EL or your technology is not ready, come on Discover. It will be a really useful thing for you. Okay, and those are our dates. but you can find those online as well. I'm just realizing we've got 4 minutes for questions, and I just want to make sure that everyone's got the opportunity to ask anything more. Are there any other questions? Eva?
Hi, Rosie. So recently I've been asked a question about a video. So there is an option to upload a video. It
Don't
says,
worry
tell
too
us
much about
something interesting what you built. What sort of, videos, answers do you expect?
We are asked by Innovate UK to use F6S, which is the platform for applications. In the majority of cases, it's very useful. The top 4 or 5 questions at the top are just things that F6S impose on them. Answer the ones that you have to answer, which start with introduce your name with a snazzy title or something along those lines, and then answer the 14 questions after that. If there are optional things, the things about the videos, don't worry about that unless you have a video that demonstrates your technology and you want to show it to us. There is an opportunity for you to upload it. You do not have to.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thanks, Tom. There will be a recording. It will be sent out. Unlike the last one, which we managed to lose because I was doing technology in charge. That was bad. Does anyone else have any other questions? No? Well, all I can do is say a heartfelt thanks to Sue for coming along and doing that. Thank you very, very much. And to all the rest of you for coming along and finding out more about it. We'll just put the email in the website, and there we go. So in the chat, if you've got any questions, do email ICURe@setsquared.co.uk. You can email me if you wish to. It's rosie.jones@setsquared.co.uk, Rosie with a Y, just in case too. But anyone else at the ICURe website, they will send it on to me if the questions are not straightforward. Thank you, Sue. Thank you for everyone else for coming.
And thank you very much for interacting. That's the word I'm looking for.
Brilliant. And we look forward to your applications. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks.
Thanks, Rosie and Sue.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.